All right, and I'll turn it over to Scarlett to start.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Virtual spaces cannot replace the lands that sustain and empower us. I am at home in Worcester, Massachusetts, homelands of the Nipmuc Nation people and their allied tribes, past and present. The Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council is located at 25 Main Street in South Grafton, and NEMA recognizes that our organization and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society, which continues the exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples throughout New England and beyond. You can use the Indigenous Peoples land map. I'm going to drop it here in the chat to find where you're zooming in from or where your museum is located. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I'll pass it back to Meg.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And it is really nice to see so many folks here relatively early on a Monday morning. Thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to share this recording. We will be sending it out to everybody. Share it with your co-panelists who may not have been able to make it, or let them know we're going to be doing this again in November for anyone else who couldn't make it this morning and needs a refresher. I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. This is going to look and sound really familiar to those of you who presented with us last year. So that's the good news. And as much rapid change as there was last year, virtual platforms for conferences have kind of stabilized since. So again, if you presented with us last year, Whova is going to look a lot the same as it did last year. So you know more about this than you may think you do. So first and most important step, thank you to all of you who have already registered for conference. There are plenty of you, however, who I believe still remain needing to register. Make sure that you do, make sure your fellow panelists do. You are not going to be able to get to your session without a valid registration. There are several different ways you can do that. So there is the option for speaker registration. You get a reduced rate. If you are only going to be attending conference for your session and are not going to be going to the rest, you can register for session only, which is completely free. There are all the other options as well. One-day rate, reduced registration for anyone who is unemployed or experiencing financial hardships, etc. We also have lots of scholarships and fellowships available. Heather, where are we on the deadline for applying for those?
This Friday.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm doing a really bad job holding. Thank you. I'm doing very, very badly with holding dates in my head this fall. I blame it on the nice weather. So yes, please make sure that you and all your co-panelists register for conference, because while we will be sending everybody a unique speaker link, which I will get back to later, in order to be able to access your session through Zoom, we won't be able to send it to you if we don't have your email, and we won't be able to let you have access to, say, the Q&A and chat, which are hosted through the Whova platform instead of through Zoom. So that is all super important. This is the Whova app. Should look familiar to anybody who's been to a conference with us since at least 2015, because I think that's about how long we've been using Whova. So you may still have it on your phone, and if not, you can download it from the App Store or Google Play or wherever. And it is both a tablet and phone app, and also a desk-based platform at this point. So we recommend, for kind of best conference experience, that you participate through the desktop. But there are some situations where you might actually want to have it open on your phone or tablet or second screen or whatever, in addition to your desktop. Whoops. So yes, Chrome is Whova's preferred browser. We had some issues last year with Safari in particular, and Firefox was also kind of buggy. So they do work, but if you find yourself having difficulties, switch to Chrome, because that seems to be the platform that works best. As speakers, you will all have access to the Speaker Hub once you log into Whova, and it will get you directly to your own sessions. It will give you the opportunity to promote your session over social media. It will have a centralized place to gather any questions that are submitted during your sessions through the Q&A feature. So that's really useful. And that might be, again, one of the reasons why you might want to have the app open separately on a tablet or phone, so that you can get at questions and answers during your session while you are using your desktop for other things like screen sharing and talking through Zoom. So Whova has a really useful speaker guide that will answer a lot of basic questions, and the link is right up here. If you just Google Whova speaker guide, it will also come up. We will be sending you a unique speaker link to participate in your session using Zoom. So you want to make sure that you have recently updated Zoom so that you don't have any connectivity issues. If you do have access to plugging in via cable rather than relying on Wi-Fi, that can also help with signal strength issues. And when we send you the link, do not turn around and just broadcast that to the rest of your panelists, because otherwise they will all sign in and they will all have your name. So we want everybody to be able to have their own unique speaker link. So please make sure, again, that everybody registers, so we have everybody's email so that we can get everybody their own link, so that we don't have, 10 Scarlet Hoeys signing into a session, because that will confuse everyone, especially Scarlet. So unless you are asking for a meeting or breakout format, the attendees will be viewing your session broadcast on the Whova platform. So they will not be in the Zoom room with you. It will just be you, the speakers, and everybody else will be participating through Whova in that chat format rather than the Zoom chat. If you need breakout rooms, or if your panel discussion, et cetera, is planning to be more roundtable town hall style, where you want a lot of spoken audience participation, you need to let us know as soon as possible so that we can get that set up properly on the back end, because it does make a difference whether we are doing webinar or meeting format, and it will change links and stuff in the background. So deadline for that is November 5th to let me know so that we can be getting the sessions set up. Plan on signing in about 10 minutes early to your session in order to make sure that we can do any troubleshooting necessary. And either one of us on the NEMA staff or a conference ambassador will be there in the Zoom room to assist you with any difficulties. So conference ambassadors are going to be mostly NEMA board members, PAG chairs, other NEMA friends who feel technologically savvy and want to help us out with conference. And the role of the conference ambassador is to welcome all the speakers, help you with your troubleshooting, play any sponsor videos that may be attached to the beginning of your session, since that is one of the perks of virtual sponsorship. It will be the role of the conference ambassador to enable the auto transcription so that everybody has access to the closed captioning. If you are presenting on your own, or you have not previously arranged among your fellow panelists to have people rotate monitoring the chat and the Q&A, the conference ambassador can help you with that, but you need to let them know in that 10-minute window before the session starts that you need a little assistance with that. And they will also do end of session timekeeping. So they'll give you like a 5-minute warning before the end of the session. They will not be doing session like timekeeping amongst the panelists. That's up to you guys. Because we don't know, who needs 20 minutes, who needs 25, who needs 10, et cetera. That's up to you guys. In terms of screen sharing, you can decide whether you want everybody to be submitting your slides to a central person and have somebody, be the mouse jockey, such that you say sort of next slide, please. I tend to find them very distracting, so I prefer myself to make sure that every speaker is prepared to share their own slides. However, it does help if you make sure that you send your slides to some of your other panelists, so you have backup copies in case your own computer freezes or something like that. You might want to try having a practice run with your co-panelists and test your connections for lags, et cetera. Do a little practice run on your own Zoom channel. Make sure that you shut down any extra background programs that you're running. If you're me, I regularly have something like 25 tabs open in my various browsers. And, it really helps connection speeds, et cetera, to just shut down everything except what you absolutely need while you're presenting. Plan for your transition times between presenters, because if you are switching back and forth with the screen sharing, use that opportunity to let people ask a question or two or skim the chat, see if there's something you want to be able to respond to while somebody else is getting set up. If you are planning on showing video, we highly recommend that you do not embed that in your presentation, because that can get very buggy. So like, don't embed your video in your PowerPoint and then try to play it in your PowerPoint screen sharing. It really works much better if you just have it open in a separate screen. And if there's sound involved, don't forget when you click share screen to also click the option that says share computer sound so that everybody can hear your video. And any platform works, whether you like slides or Keynote or Prezi or PowerPoint, it's all going to be hosted on your own local computer. So whatever works on your computer will work for people who are watching. Heather and Scarlett, I do not have the chat open. Does anybody have any questions thus far? Because I know I'm in info dump mode.
Yes. Slow down a little bit. So Alexander, I think we need to go through the ins and outs, what the difference is between meeting and webinar.
Sure.
If you're in a meeting format, it will kick you off of Whova and you will be in Zoom. But if you're in the webinar format, which is more of a talking head format, which we kind of would like to stay in the Whova platform, that's where all the chat and stuff will be used in that aspect of it. Alexander, does that answer your question?
The question was just, could you change from one to the other because most of it could be webinar, but then have a question and answer that was more interactive?
It's one or the other. So it's either you have everybody on screen with you. We found out in the last year or so that people are getting tired of being on camera. So there's a lot of little black squares with names. So that would be the black squares with names, but you can't switch between the two. It's either the meeting format or the webinar format.
It has to do with how everything's set up in the background on Whova, where we have to create the session as being one format or the other. And there isn't any way to like swap formats in the middle of a session.
And then it looks like Brad has a question about playing a YouTube video.
Okay. Yes, you can play a YouTube video. Just don't forget to do share computer sound along with.
So essentially it's as if we're sharing on Zoom, even though it's going to be in Whova.
Yeah, exactly. Because your experience as the speaker is that you're going to be in Zoom much the way we are right now. But unless you're in meeting format, all of your audience is going to be seeing it through Whova as if it was like more of a television broadcast, and interacting through the Whova chat and question and answer features, because the Zoom ones will not be enabled.
And if you were to do a YouTube video, I encourage you to enable the transcriptions in YouTube itself, because sometimes the auto transcriptions of Zoom, I don't think always catch the YouTube video. And it looks like we got a good suggestion from Emily for folks to update their Zoom software prior to conference to get the most recent version of Zoom. And in Emily's experience, video plays better on Zoom if it's played locally on the computer, not from the cloud. Thank you, Emily.
All right. Yeah. So if you have the option to download your video or you have a local copy of it somehow, it will probably play better than having to do the play from the cloud, broadcast back to the cloud. There's a little more lag that way. Okay. All right. Technology, of course, has been wonderful in the last couple of years to help us stay connected while things have been a little awry in the rest of the world. However, it is not always our best friend. And if everything crashes, please don't panic. It will be okay. Everyone understands that technology can be irritating. So do whatever troubleshooting you need to do, whether that's restarting your browser, your computer, your Wi-Fi, etc. Make sure you have some kind of backup available, such as being able to phone into your session. Your unique speaker link will also come with a phone number. Use your co-presenter's copy of your slides if your computer is freezing, etc. Or if you know that you live in an area with really unpredictable internet and you would feel more comfortable being able to pre-record your session and send it to us and have us just play the pre-recorded session, and then you can be present at the time of your session to be participating live through the chat and Q&A features, you can also do that. Just let us know if that's what you're planning so that, again, we can get that set up on the back end for, loading up a video. So yes, other things to do with what's going on with your session. If, again, you want to be able to do breakout rooms, you need to let us know, because that changes how we set things up. It needs to be meeting format instead of webinar. If you have any specific accessibility requests, please let us know. As we mentioned before, every session is going to be using the auto transcription unless you specifically reach out to us with other accessibility needs, in which case we will work with you to make sure that that's all set. So if you have any specific accessibility requests, please do reach out, let me know, and we will get that taken care of. There is also the option to request that through your conference registration. Q&A and chat are through the Whova platform. You can see what it looks like here on the screen cap. So this is going to be, my session with Rainey. When the session is running, there will be a video window right above where it says bigger impact, and to the side of the video, there's the option to switch between tabs for question and answer, polls, general chat, etc. You can also get back to the community tab from there and be participating in discussions in some completely other forum in the middle of your session if you are that kind of multitasker. I don't recommend it, but it's possible. It's there. Handouts and resources are going to be hosted on the NEMA website, same as usual. I did send everybody the link for that in the most recent speaker information email. So if you have lost that link, you can go back to the NEMA website, and under the conference section, you can go to the tab that says handouts, and there's a link there for submitting any handouts you have prepped for your session. Now, your handouts can include a PDF copy of your slides or any presentation notes that you want to be able to share with people, any lists of resources and links that you might be mentioning in your session, or any worksheets or templates that you might be working through in the session that people would want to be able to have access to later. So all of those are possibilities. There is, as there was last year, an option to run informal meetups through the Whova platform, and I will go through how to do that in just a minute. Last year, they were using Jitsi, which turned out to be a little shaky once you had a large number of people in the meeting rooms. I believe they're using a different platform this year, but it also does give you the option to host a meetup through Whova, either using their in-platform meetup option, or you can, if you have your own Zoom account and you want to be able to host an informal meetup, you can put in a link and people will be able to get to that straight through Whova as well. Some people like being able to start their session with a land acknowledgement. We welcome you to do that if you would like. And we are happy to talk to you more about that. There's a really good article on how to do a land acknowledgement that our board member, Loren Spears, wrote a couple of years back, and it's in the journal, and we can drop the link in the chat to that before the end of this session. So again, if you have accessibility needs or you need to do meeting format, breakout sessions, etc., you need to let us know. Sooner is better than later, absolutely no later than November 5th. How to do a virtual meetup. Yes.
Hang on a sec. Chat question.
Yes.
From, let's see, Amanda asked, will the Q&A and chat be in Whova even if our session is in a meeting format? So noting the two different formats.
Yes. Yes, it is helpful to try to keep it all in Whova. Heather, you wanted to add to something?
Yeah, if you are in the meeting format, it will completely kick you off of Whova, and you'll be completely in Zoom itself.
So in other words, people who are attending your session will be in Whova like we are right now, as opposed to going through the platform. But the platform will have the link to the Whova. Is that to the Whova meeting?
To the Zoom meeting, yes.
To the Zoom meeting, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Last year, I believe we attempted disabling the chat and Q&A in Zoom to make people use Whova. We will figure out whether we're going to do that again this year. And Scarlett, thank you very much for popping in the link. You are the link queen. Okay, any other questions before I move on? Okay. So for setting up a virtual meetup, if you want to be able to let people continue to have discussion after your session, for instance, or if kind of a tangential idea comes out of discussion in your session and people want to be able to keep talking about it, you can set up a virtual meetup through Whova, and this is how you do it. So in the community tab in Whova, it's got the two little speech bubbles as an image. You can select meetups and virtual meets and then suggest a meet. And then go ahead and label what it's going to be, you know, either talk with these people or talk about this subject, etc. You can either use the built-in meeting function, or you can insert a link to your own URL if you use Zoom or GoToMeeting or, you know, Google Meet, whatever your preferred option is. Whova will just link people straight to that, set the time and duration of the meeting, and it will pop up then in the community tab as like upcoming meetups. So that is how to do that if you want to be able to continue the conversation spurred by your session, or if you just happen across, say, a thread of conversations that are happening elsewhere in the forums there, and you want to be able to actually get a chance to talk to people in person about anything, favorite flavors of ice cream, etc. For anybody who is interested in doing a land acknowledgement, there is, of course, the link Scarlett just dropped. Here is a potential example that you can use as a start. The most important thing is to make sure that what you're saying is meaningful to you and that it's not just by rote. So there are a lot of examples out there, and we are also, you know, happy to chat with you if you have any thoughts or questions about that. Okay. And then Scarlett just led a virtual presentation, so I'm going to invite her to jump in here in just a sec in case she has any thoughts, having recently been a virtual conference presenter. But do better than me about speaking slowly. I'm never good at it, but I try. Speak slowly, keep your slides simple. Too much text is really overwhelming, kind of no matter what kind of presentation you're talking about. If you have a headset with microphone capabilities, that can be really helpful in terms of cutting down on background noise, you know, trucks going by, airplanes, dogs, toddlers, whatever. The rest of the NEMA staff has to hear an awful lot of PBS kids coming from behind me in staff meetings because, yeah, toddlers. So make sure that you pause periodically, especially if you're failing at speaking slowly, and make sure that you invite interaction. Stop to see if anyone has any questions thus far or comments to add or anything like that. It can be really, really helpful to work among your panel to appoint someone to be kind of question wrangler for each presenter. So, you know, Heather's talking, Scarlett's monitoring the chat. She can pop in when Heather pauses for breath to say, actually, someone had a question, could you elaborate on this, etc., so that the person who's presenting doesn't have to be trying to read the chat at the same time, because that can be very difficult to try to keep up with. And if you are planning on sharing any specific resources, have those links to drop in the chat like pre-collected in a document where you can just copy and paste, etc. The other thing you can do is Zoom now allows you to share files through the chat, which is not a possibility through Whova. So the things you can be doing are just preload that list of links up as a handout for your session, or again, make sure that you're dropping them in the chat as you go, but have them easy to cut and paste so you don't have to go searching for things. All right, Scarlett, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
Yeah, I'd just chime in real quick and say at the start of your presentation, if you decide to do a land acknowledgement, I'd also encourage folks to consider including your pronouns for introduction as well. You can hover over your little face in Zoom and there's 3 little dots and there's a rename button. So you're always welcome to include your pronouns as well in your renaming of yourself in your Zoom box. But otherwise for virtual presentation, I just echo what Meg said. If you have a screen where you're kind of sharing your presentation, and then you have your mobile tablet or phone to look at questions. It's really easy to keep track that way. Just make sure that if you have both, you mute one of them, because otherwise you're going to get an echo and a reverberation that won't be very pleasant for about a second until you're like, oh no, what's happening? And so you'll mute one of them. But that is the only kind of thing I can think of. But I'll turn it back to you, Meg.
That is a very good point. Thank you. Yes. Please, if you are kind of doing the double screen thing, make sure that one of them is muted entirely, because otherwise, yeah, it does get very unpleasant. Okay. All right, back to the option for pre-recording, just in case there was anyone who was interested in that. Let us know that that's what you're planning, so we don't set up a spurious meeting for you. Use your own video conferencing platform or account in order to be able to gather all your speakers and do your recording, record with all your presenters, edit it as you need to, and then send it to us. Usually they end up being really big files, so send it via Dropbox or some other file transfer by November 5th and send it to the main conference account, which is conference@nemanet.org, which is very easy to remember. Does anybody have any questions about anything else thus far?
It looks like we had a question about recording sessions if they're recorded live. So to that question, they will be recorded live unless you've told Meg or someone on the team that you don't want the session recorded, or if it's pre-recorded, then it won't be recorded twice.
Right.
There's just some a couple sessions that are sensitive topics that we would want people to be a little bit more open in discussions, and that's why we won't be recording a couple of the sessions this year like we did last year.
Exactly.
Looks like we've got one more question. Someone was wondering if it's possible to make like a grid sheet using the difference between Whova and Zoom, between meeting or webinar mode. It looks like Zoom, when does it act like a Zoom, kind of like an A/B thing?
Okay, so if you're going with webinar format, what happens is that you and your co-presenters are the only ones in the Zoom room, so you can all see each other, but it works kind of like a webinar format in Zoom where you cannot see the audience. But the only difference is that your audience will be seeing you with the frame of the Whova platform around it. And rather than asking questions in the chat in Zoom, because they won't be there, they will be asking questions on the Whova platform frame. So webinar format works the same for speakers. It looks like webinar format for Zoom, but all the audience participation is in the Whova frame. If you go with meeting format, then it's just like this. It will bounce you and all your attendees out of the Whova platform, and you will have bunches of heads in boxes for you, your panelists, and your attendees all in the meeting format, which will allow you to have people ask questions and be on camera so that you can do breakout rooms and town hall style conversations, etc.
But keep in mind, most people aren't putting their cameras on. So it's always that, well, I want to see people. Well, people aren't actually putting their cameras on right now. So keep that in mind when you think about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Zoom fatigue. So even if you think you want meeting format because you want to be able to see people's faces reacting to what you're saying, chances are really good they won't have their cameras on. There has been a steady decrease in faces in boxes over the last several months, and most people are just choosing to be black squares.
We're really encouraging the webinar format. It's just easier for us, the attendees, for you as well.
Yeah, so unless structurally you really, really need to be able to have a conversation with everybody in the room, stick with webinar format. Is November 5th also the deadline to submit handouts? Obviously, pre-conference would be really good to make sure you've submitted all your handouts. So preferably, yes. If you can get your handouts in by November 5th, yes, that would be great, because it does take time for us to make sure that it can all go live on the website. But I'm going to defer this to Heather because she's our web.
Yeah, no, I do get handout submissions the day of. just beware that it's me having to link in the background. So if you need it for your session that starts in 10 minutes, the odds of me getting that on our website linked is probably not the highest because I'm also in the background on the tech side of Whova as well for all of that. So just keep in mind that if you do want it up for your session that you want to link to, like Emily was asking earlier, then make sure you submit it like the week before, because that would be awesome. I have time to do it then, but the day of is a little bit more difficult for me to link that handout.
Yeah. The limit to the number of breakout rooms in Zoom is 50. So if you have, 100 people in your session and you want everybody to be able to talk one-on-one, great. If you have 120 people in your session, then you're going to have some people, you're going to need 3 people in a room.
I just wanted to chime in really quick. I was thinking about Erica's question again, kind of the difference between Zoom and Whova. One way to think about it is with the Zoom webinar kind of presenter mode format, when attendees are watching you through the Whova platform, it's kind of like a screen they're watching you through, kind of like you'd watch TV or something, where the outside is like the banner, the Whova Q&A, the chat, and you're watching the presenters present. Whereas in meeting mode, you get taken out of platform kind of in the Brady Bunch style format. Just trying to think of visual ways to tie it in, but I hope that helps.
All right. And then the last bit of reminder is that NEMA's Code of Conduct applies to virtual gatherings as well as in-person gatherings. So if you feel like there are things that are counter to the Code of Conduct happening in your session, please let us know, flag the conference ambassador, privately in chat, or you can reach out to any of us on staff, because if people don't report things, we cannot take any action to make things better. Sometimes we don't hear that there was, an issue that made someone uncomfortable until, 2 weeks after the fact and with no specifics mentioned, and there's nothing we can do at that point. So if you have any current concerns, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We have only very, very rarely heard any complaints because this is a very professional set of people and a polite one as well, but that does not mean that things do not crop up. So please do reach out to any of us, and the link for the Code of Conduct is of course right here in case you need a refresher. So that is the end of my prepared slides, and we have plenty of time now, the next 20 minutes or so, to answer any other questions that have come up or go back more slowly over anything that I said too fast. And please feel free to go ahead and, ask your questions aloud in addition to dropping them in the chat. Estimated range on how many people might be attending sessions. Brad, your guess is as good as mine. Last year we had about 800 people attending conference, but like in-person conferences, you never really know whether it's going to be a room with 200 people or a room with 20 people. So no real sense. I'm very sorry. Can't predict that whatsoever, but we can say things like, if you have a social media presence and you want to talk up your session ahead of time, we recommend you do that. If you are interested in trying to find out how many people are in your session, you can try running a poll at the beginning to get a sense of who's in the room. There are definitely options to try to figure that out, but there's really no way to predict. On the upside, with virtual conferences, you don't have to worry about there not being enough seats for everybody, and you don't have to worry about not having enough copies of your handouts. So,
as I was going to chime in and say, with the conference app, once you're in the platform, you'll be able to say like, oh, I want to go to this session and this session and this session. And as a presenter, you'll be able to see, how many folks have, said that they're going to join your session. It doesn't mean that many people will join it, because you can join, say that you're going to all of them. But yeah, just something else you can look at.
But it's a good indicator of interest. And even if they don't all make it to your session live, it suggests that they might be going back to watch the recording after. So, it does give you a sense of, how many people are interested in your topic. Can the presenters see how many people are in the room live? Only in meeting format. If it's webinar format, there is not any way to tell exactly how many people are watching. Okay, and the answer to the question of whether people will submit questions via Whova if you're using meeting mode, I don't know if we've actually figured out whether we're disabling the Zoom chat and question and answer feature or not yet. Heather, have you made a decision on
no,
that?
if you're in the meeting, you'll have the chat option. So Alex, I know your session off the top of my head is definitely in the meeting format already. So you'll be able to do, it will be just like the Zoom platform like we're on right now.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. Sorry for asking a repeat question. Will there also be a Whova to pay attention to if you are in meeting mode? Like, will there be more questions somewhere else?
Arguably, some people might potentially be submitting questions or chat through Whova in addition to using the Zoom chat. So I would say, let people know at the beginning of your session if you would prefer them to all use Zoom and not use the Whova option so that you only have one thing to keep track of.
Thank you so much.
Because we did have people using both last year and that did get confusing. Okay, any other questions?
Hey, Meg, I have a question on the auto captioning.
Sure.
Is this something that's going to be obvious to the audience? Will they know where to find it? Should we mention it that it's happening at the beginning of the session?
So yeah, go ahead, Heather or Scarlett.
So Emily, do you see right now on top of your screen that there's a banner that says there's live transcription? No, okay, it might just be on the host. No, we can make sure that it's mentioned that there's live transcription and stuff like that.
I see a live transcript icon at the bottom of my screen. Is that maybe that's the one?
Yeah.
Let me click that.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
know
Oh,
last week AAM was on Zoom, ASLH was on Zoom, and there's a banner at the top saying that there's a live transcript going on.
Mhm.
Got it. Thank you.
I see Kathy raising her hand.
I was just saying, I saw that live transcript bar earlier. I clicked it off, so it's not there anymore, but I did see it at some point. I don't know.
It usually pops up when you turn it on, so.
So if we're broadcasting via Whova, is that something that's automatically on?
Yeah, so you should be able to control your viewing experience through Whova the same way you do in Zoom. So you should be able to turn the captioning on through the Whova, because it's like tiny Zoom broadcast inside the Whova frame. So you should be able to turn on, view captions.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
The conference ambassador will take care of all of that. So if there's if we're using the Zoom AI transcribing, they'll turn that on. If it's actually a live transcriber, which our 2 keynote addresses in the annual meeting will definitely be live. But if anybody else does want a live transcriber, we'll set that up on the back end and they'll be there in the session itself too. We'll take care of all of that, the ambassador does.
Okay, and then Amanda wants to know about being able to put people and recall people from the breakout rooms. If all of the panelists and presenters need that, then we can have the conference ambassador make you all co-hosts before the session starts. So whoever you want to have that power, make sure that you ask the conference ambassador to make you a co-host before the session starts. That's what that good 10-minute buffer before your session starts is for. That's a really good question, Amanda. Thank you. Little details like that are exactly the sort of thing that you get into the room and you're like, wait, how do I do that? So.
Yeah, definitely let us know if you're doing breakout rooms. So either the staff or the conference ambassador is aware that there's going to be some extra duties associated with that particular time slot. Amanda, I know you and Aaron have a big one. So, and then the second thing, the other thing to think about, if anybody asks you about when can I see the recording, it's not 10 minutes after the session ends. Please don't ask. It just gives me palpitations. It does take a little bit of time for us to actually get them back up, turn around and put them on YouTube with the links. So it's not going to be immediately after the session or the next day, please be patient with us and stuff like that. So we will let everybody know when they will be available. It's just not immediately. So if anybody asks, or if you're wondering, we'll let you know.
Yeah, auto record and upload is sadly not one of the services that Whova offers. And therefore, like, you know, we are individually recording the sessions and then going through and, you know, editing where necessary. Because for instance, if there are breakout rooms and there's just like 15 minutes of dead black air in the main room, like we're going to cut that. And, you know, it's not an automatic process. So yeah, we'll get to it. We'll let everybody know when the videos are live, but it's not instantaneous.
The other thing we should mention about the videos, we do have a few of the sessions being sponsored. So the conference ambassador will play a quick 30 second like video and stuff like that. So you, as a presenter, you do not need to worry about that one. The conference ambassador will be sharing their screen. They'll be playing it, hopefully with the music on, or I have to replace that in the recording and stuff like that. So we'll take care of that, but we will let you know if there's a video that needs to be played at the beginning, or the conference ambassador will let you know that they have to do like a little video play first.
Mm-hmm.
Would you would you all reiterate when you want people logging in, when they can access, you know, sort of the green room, and what happens then, like the video play, if there's a video plays, and then when do they start, you know, the sequence of now you're on?
Yeah, sure. So you'll get your email with your unique speaker link. If you're speaking in more than one session, make sure you're clicking the right link for the right day. You can log in 10 minutes before when the session is due to start. There are at least 15-minute breaks between each of the sessions, so you should have plenty of time. So log in about 10 minutes early, get a chance to do any troubleshooting if you need to practice sharing your screen or anything like that, if you need to get made into a co-host, etc. The conference ambassador will go over if there are any sponsor announcements or videos or anything that need to be said at the beginning. When the session starts, the conference ambassador will say, welcome everybody, here's our sponsor video, and then turn it over to whoever has said they're going to be speaking first for your session. And then you just roll as regular from there until the conference ambassador gives you your 5-minute warning for the end of the session.
And when the attendees, do the ambassadors admit that the attendees prior?
No.
So they just can come in as they drift in?
No.
Okay.
Because if you're using webinar format, there are no attendees coming into your room at all. The video just goes live at the specified time on the Whova platform. So if you are in meeting format, yes, the conference ambassador can do a like admit all. But if you're in webinar format, nothing to worry about, no attendees filtering in or whatever. They're just like on the Whova platform. No green room to worry about.
Well, the point is just then at that hour, you're now live. And so whatever you say is to the world. So, right.
Okay. And Erica wants to know, is there a list of registrants available at some time? You can, once the conference app and platform go live, you can go see a list of speakers and attendees. It's all right there in the platform. Okay. Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This has been really helpful. So thank you for doing this. I did want to ask at the end of the session, what is the cutoff time? Like, who controls that? Does Whova just like cut the session at the end time? Or is there like, you know, what's the risk of cutting people off mid-sentence? Is there any control over that?
I think we have the ability to run a little over.
Yeah, no, it's up to the conference ambassador. I will make sure that all of our conference ambassadors do not end any meetings on anybody else, because that's bad. So
right. That being said, however, you cannot run more than 5 minutes over, because somebody is going to be needing the channel to do their 10-minute prep for the next session, because we are going to have 5 Zoom channels running concurrently, but they will need to be doing the next session. So you do not have more than 5 minutes to run over, because otherwise they will be cutting you out and saying, nope, you're done. Because we need the Zoom channel now.
And we do have the deep dive in November of the Whova platform. So I would suggest registering for that as well. And that will just give you the back end part of how to use Whova. But it's pretty self-explanatory. Once you go in, just start clicking a bunch of buttons. That's my philosophy. So
it's one of the reasons we've stuck with Whova, is that the user experience is really pretty easy. So
the Whova training is, whoops, let me get to that one.
Okay, so we're doing another speakers and facilitators conference preview on November 2nd at 9:30. And then we're doing a conference preview for anyone and everyone that's a review of the Whova platform, specifically on November 8th at 4 p.m. Okay, and Pilar, good question. Does the conference ambassador encourage the attendees to complete the survey, or is that something the facilitator needs to do? Everybody should be reminding people to fill out your surveys. We will certainly ask the conference ambassadors to do that, but if you, the speakers, can also encourage people to do that, that is great.
Yeah, the ambassadors are more of in the background, unless you need help with the chat. But they're more just there to make sure everything goes smoothly. Yeah. So definitely do the survey. We'll also be reminding people as well in emails, do the follow-up one. Super easy because it's right there on the app. It's awesome. No yellow forms to fill out. I miss my yellow forms.
There are probably still piles from previous years sitting on my shelves in the office, Heather, next time you're in there.
I'm just saying, we usually get more response rates on the yellow pieces of paper.
It's true. Well, when you have to sit on them, they're hard to forget. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for being part of conference. We literally would have no conference without you, and we really, really appreciate it. So we are all available if you come up with questions that you didn't think of right now. So feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on staff with any other questions. Again, if you have accessibility needs or you are sure you want meeting format, let me know as soon as possible. If you are having any other questions or difficulties, please feel free to reach out at any time. So yes, we're really looking forward to conference. I think there's a great lineup this year. I'm very excited. So tell all your friends to register for conference.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.